Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Fearless Floyd Show. That is not Fearless Floyd. That would be our guest tonight, Darrell Link. I try to throw a curve every now and then, man, make it a little bit interesting, right? So, like last night, we're being consistent. I'm waiting on my guest to show up backstage for you. And I don't have anything prepared. I've been just working on other stuff. I'm printing stuff out. Jesus Christ. Life's never boring. I can tell you that. Always on our toes. If you watched last night's video, I got to do an hour stand-up comedy. So tune into that. That would be the Iron Super Soldier show. She came on and we did an hour together, and we're going to come back and do another hour this week sometime. Wow. That was a wild 2 hours, if I have to call it myself. So, yeah, very interesting hearing from her talk about speaking to herself in other universes, but herself would be in another different gender, different body. Yeah, just really very interesting conversation, and the things that she informed us about last night, I was just like really amazed. Really good interview. Yeah, I enjoyed it. So you should go check it out. Just to listen to Irene, you can come on about an hour into it, and that's when she's on. And I kept it at 2 hours, give her an hour. And then I'll have her back on and we can dive into more at length about all that. Maybe I'll come on, bring some questions and comments. I don't know where Darrell is. So I emailed him the link. Hey, man. Yeah. I thought we were going on at 8 or 7 your time.
I didn't know you didn't really say it time.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I'm already on. Take your time. I got it. Just pop on backstage. I emailed you the link.
How do I get on with the phone?
Open up your email and on your phone and just click on that link and everything should open up.
I don't get email on the damn phone.
I can text it to you. I can text you the link. Hang on. Let's see if this will work. Copy. Oh, I'm talking to you. That's why. Yeah. I'll text it to you.
Okay.
I have to hang up to do it, though. All right. Sorry about that. There we go. My app closed. Hang on. Glad I didn't sit here and wait, try to wait on him for an hour and bore you again with my montage of verbalicity. How'd you like that for a word? Where you at, Darrell? There you are. Verbalicity. Just coined a new word. All right, Darrell has been texted the link to the show. Hopefully he will come on. Man, I already got 4 comments. What's going on? Autistic Expression Gen X. How you doing? Thank you for coming over here and hanging out. Bro, been stalked since 91. I ran one. Anyone else here? I love Jerky Boys. Just kidding. Okay. Well, wait on Darrell. If you don't know anything about Darrell, this is a very, very long story, and Darrell wants to go through it. He's put it on the record, so it is what it is. I don't know how much more we've got to go through. I know I've got 20 somethings of PDFs, but I don't know if they're documents or pictures. I haven't even opened them up and looked at them. So it may take Darrell a minute to get here. And oh, stop whining at the door because you can't get in the kitchen. And all right. I don't know how long it's going to take Darrell to get here because he's he's using his phone because his connection through whatever device he used last time, he said he went back and listened to it and he didn't like the way it sounded, so he's going to use his phone this week. So now we're using his phone. He doesn't have email on his phone. I guess he's got an older dumb phone. I don't know. I don't even know what that looks like. So we're going to try it through his phone this week, a different device. And I don't know how long it'll take him to go through whatever he's got to go through to get there. And be right back. All right, let's go see if we have our guest on. Darrell, that you? Darrell? Can you hear me? Darrell?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Okay.
I can hear you.
I can hear you coming in clear. Hopefully it'll come through a little bit clearer than it did the last time when it kept breaking up.
Okay. All right. All right. Where do you want to go?
Okay. Well, could give a little review of a little bit of where we started from, where we were dismissed out of the Chapter 12 bankruptcy, and then a week or so later, I filed that commercial lien process, non-judicial commercial lien process. They reinstated it, and they converted it to I withdrew my consent. I revoked, rescinded my signature because I didn't want to be back in bankruptcy. And then they converted to an involuntary Chapter 7. And so that's where we're at now at Part 10 or Exhibit 10. And this was on January. This case was converted to a Chapter 7 case on December 8th, 1994. And on the 13th of December, they come out with the SWAT group and they stole all the cattle. And then this here case continued on. If you want to show that Exhibit 10.
Exhibit 10.
As kind of proof.
Okay.
And then we went and on January or February 8th, or this was on February 8th, but in the meantime, we had a trial in state court where they were charging me with converting, where I sold 7 loads of hay that I grew in 2024 after the bankruptcy was filed, which wasn't part of the bankruptcy court. But when they converted to a Chapter 7, they try to claim all the property being part of the bankruptcy, including the hay, the new hay. They said once the Chapter 12 was converted to a Chapter 7, all property become part of the bankruptcy estate. And so then the bankruptcy trustee's henchman claimed to be the victim in this bankruptcy case. And after this trial, I had the bankruptcy trustee and his henchmen and the bankers, all these people up on the stand, and I questioned them back and forth, and they were wanting. They didn't. I think they figured that the jury was going to find me, going to drop all the charges, and they didn't. So they went up the last day of the trial to Sioux Falls, and they got a grand jury indictment. And there was, I believe, there were 6 people on this here grand jury. And anyway, if you want to show Exhibit 10A, they brought this here charge of mail fraud, conversion of property, and concealment of assets. And you'll see count number 1, they charged me for a purported certified money order, and that's where I tendered these money orders by certified mail to Production Credit Association, to the FHA, and to the Commercial State Bank. And then I also, that was count number 1. And count number 2, they charged me with tendering a public office money certificate. And that was to the Farmers Home Administration for what they were claiming was due. And then count number 3, this is what I showed in the last exhibit, where I filed that proof of loss where they stole those cattle with no warrant. I was discharged out of the bankruptcy, and I had no part. But then now the bankruptcy court was claiming that they owned it all. So, and you'll see it was a bar attorney again, Irvin N. Hoyt, who was the chief judge, that where he, knew for a fact that the cattle were not stolen and had become part of the property of the Chapter 7 bankruptcy estate. That was count number 3. And then count number 4, I was still trying to farm that year. And so I had a new crop in 1994. And so they seized all my checking accounts. They told all the elevators around that any crops that were sold would have to have Production Credit Association's name on it. And so what I did is I sold a load of corn on the landlord's name to cover the first half of the rent. And it was for 80 acres that I had rented from them. And then number 5, counts 5 through 15, they charged me with fraudulently conceal certain property of a bankruptcy estate. And this is where they said that when the Chapter 12 was converted to a Chapter 7, all property become part of the bankruptcy estate. And now anything that I moved, it was considered concealed. So I was still feeding a lot of cattle and stuff. And so if I had my tractor and silage wagon on one side of the pile, and then the wind switched and I parked it on the other side, that was 2 felonies. If I had my pickup parked up at the house and then the next day it was seen down by the shed, that was concealing another property. The property was located, all on property that I farmed, but then they called it concealing property of a bankruptcy estate. So that was those charges, counts 5 through 15. And then they have a list of the property that was mainly taken off of my depreciation schedule on a 1040. But what I wanted to show, it's not on there. Okay. But anyway, this was signed by the Assistant United States Attorney. So the federal government is funding this type of activity through the courts to basically condone this type of activity for the bankruptcy. But in this here criminal trial, I had Byron Dale come up to me. I was held in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and Byron Dale, he was my expert witness to testify. And he used to write a little pamphlet. It was called Money Talks. And what it showed was basically when our country was in a wealth-based system, and they used to trade with toggle sticks and to keep track of the exchange. They used to trade salt and shells. It was some intrinsic value of substance. And then he showed the progression of how we went from a wealth-based system to in 33 when we switched over to a debt-based system, and they took all the gold out of circulation and we went into circulating credit units or Federal Reserve notes. And so Byron come up to the jail the night before the trial, and he handed me, or he showed it to me through a window. They had that 2-inch glass thick window. We had to talk through the window. And anyway, he showed me this here document, this pamphlet. He said that we'll go through this, and we were planning on presenting this at the trial the next morning. So we went to the next morning. He said he'll leave it up at the counter so I could pick it up. And so the next morning, they made me go in my orange garb. They wouldn't give me any street clothes. But then when I got up to the place where, we're getting ready to, get into a transport, I said that there's this document that I said it was supposed to be left up here at the desk. And the head marshal, Kevin Johnson, said that I couldn't have this document. And he said that I tell you what you can have and what you can't have, and you can't have that. And then he pushed me down into a bench. It didn't break my back, but it wasn't very comfortable. But I was chained up with my hands and legs, and and he pushed me back into a bench, and to show his authority that he had over me. I'll go to 10E, which is the money order. A proof that of the money order that I sent by certified mail to Production Credit Association. This was a letter that it was the envelope that it was sent in, the certified mail. And in this here document, I was saying it was 31 CFR. It was actually 31 USC, United States Code, at section 371. And that was pending determination of the substance of said money by the Attorney General. And basically located as talking about credit money that's identified in UCC. And this was payable, and basically void if not presented for payment within 120 days. Well, they couldn't verify that the money had any substance. So they kept the instrument, and more than likely they utilized it, but I never got it back. So a debt tendered and refused is a debt discharged. So 10E1 is basically just a copy of that. Of it's upright. I put it that way so he didn't have to turn it on the screen. And then so after I tendered it,
hang on. No, I have some questions about this.
okay.
Who is the authorized signatory on that? Mike Loomis.
He was the guy with Joe Holland with the national or with the North American Freedom Council.
Who are they?
Well, he was the guy that helped me prepare the non-judicial lien. He worked for the Security Exchange.
Uh-huh.
So.
Okay. I mean, it really didn't tell me much, but all right.
Well, it's just a dead instrument. It's just an order to pay money. It's just in compliance with basically the statutes and codes. So since we had no money to pay debt, we only used negotiable instruments to discharge. So then what I did is I revoked and rescinded my signature on all promissory notes before. Basically, the undersigned and natural individual have full powers to contract and to rescind for fraud and misrepresentation, do hereby revoke and make void per section 2608 UCC ab initio all signatures to any and all instruments and any express or implied power of attorney therewith, in fact or assumption, signed either by me or acting as agent or undersigned as it pertains to, these are the two promissory notes and the security agreements that attach to it.
Okay.
And then there was another extension.
Hang on, I have another question.
Okay.
You're leaving me behind. I'm still here on the money order. What is Capital Resources?
Okay. Capital Resources is just their, I guess, their agency that they operated, like the name of their
Who's they?
credit union or their credit place. That
Who is they?
I guess the North American Freedom Council, Joe Holland.
Oh, back to those guys again. Okay. Oh, wow. And when did you do that?
Yeah.
94. Okay. Oh, wow. Oh. Okay. Everything's clicking now.
It's like one note as good as another note.
Well, yeah.
The signature is the value.
Yeah, I remember when all this was going around in the late 80s or in the 90s, because I was reading about the cases in prison. I'd stumble across these cases every now and then. And like when Bitcoin came out, I was in prison and I was like, and I ran across cases just like this one where they won't let you create your own money. They will shut your bitch ass down.
Well,
right?
Yeah,
Send your ass to prison.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway.
It's offset.
Yeah, well,
So anyway, I guess this is the racket. But that's why I come back and revoked and rescinded my signature on all these notes, because there was the representation that they were lending me something. They're lending me money, but they're actually only monetizing and using my own credit that I created with my signature. They never signed the note. They never signed a security agreement.
Who's they?
Production Credit Association. Production Credit Association.
Oh, okay. And who is that? Who are they?
That is affiliated with Federal Land Bank, which is one of the largest ag lenders in the country.
All right. So,
and
how'd you get entangled with those?
Anyway, at the trial. Yeah, at the trial, I had 35 certificate of facts from 35 Secretary of States in 35 different states that basically stated that certified that they were not registered to do business in any of those states, and South Dakota was one. I had a copy from the National Archives and the Legislative Archives that said that federal land or PCA were not registered to do business there either. So they weren't registered to do business anywhere, but they claimed to be an instrumentality of the United States. So where were they located? Where was their
kind of scam is
establishment?
that? Sounds like
Well,
some CIA shit.
I presented all this stuff at the trial, and basically he didn't allow. I don't know if he allowed the jury to even see that. But anyway, I know he said bring it up here, and he took a look at it, and he just kind of grinned, and I think he just moved on. It wasn't a very fair trial, but anyway, I went. Business as usual.
That's an oxymoron. Fair trial. That's an oxymoron.
Yeah, it's more like kangaroo court or a star chamber.
Yeah, well.
So the other time, revoke, cancel, annul, repeal, discharge, strike all these here names, and relinquish all signatures and powers of attorney in assumption or without consent or knowledge as it pertains to the above mentioned documents. Foregoing action is retroactive to the date of such signatures. And I further state that the notice of a promissory note, negotiable instrument 001, replaces, cancels, repudiates, discharges the obligation, existence, and prior instruments above. Discharge for discharge purposes, for that the valuable consideration referenced in same notes and security agreements to put Production Credit Association of the Midlands back in the original position held prior to the signing of the above instruments. And then 10G would be the notice of discharge. And basically it kind of explains a little bit. It kind of identifies those two notes and mortgages. Or security agreement says all signatures are revoked retroactive to the Production Credit Association of the Midlands did not perform the valuable consideration thought to be lawful payment of $2,010 as represented in the notes that were signed, neither nor ended. That is why I rescind my signatures on those financing statements, security agreements, and notes, and give you back what I believe to have been given to me as valuable consideration. I will give you 30 days to show cause why the notes, financing statements, and security agreements should not be rescinded based on fraud, misrepresentation as required by UCC 2-608 at 2. And so if at any time I want you want tender of payment on a new note, I'll bring the old notes and bring your old notes and the security agreements and financing statements satisfied with the proper notice of authority and proper credentials to receive tender of payment on it. This note will become null and void in 60 days. And I'll share it on this other note. It's 10H. So it says, if you don't bring it for tender of payment to the location within 60 days, please let me know, and I can give you an extension of time in writing. If you cannot bring it within the 60 days and you have no reason to show cause why you can't bring it to me within the time, we will consider the obligation extinguished and discharged in full. So that was sent to the bank, and here's the promissory note.
Hang on, Darrell. I'm still trying to figure out Production Credit Association, where they came into the picture. Are they like a third party debt collector for?
They were the original. They were the original claimed lender. Okay, they're the ones that I had a line of credit with.
Oh, okay.
I had a line of credit with them. I give them the collateral of all my machinery and cattle.
Okay. For how much in the
So
line?
that's why they took. That's why they took all the. That's why they took everything. We
Oh,
had more assets than liabilities, but they had a.
and you tried to pay off the debt with
Go
these
ahead.
certified money orders, right?
I didn't try to pay off. I tendered them for discharge to
Right,
offset
right,
and
right.
give them back the same thing that was given to me. Correct.
Yeah.
I was giving them back legal tender.
So
And this
that
is the
this
promissory note.
yeah, that's what started everything, right?
Well, this is what triggered the attack,
Yeah.
along with the. But we could have
Oh, yeah.
went to state court. Once I was discharged out of the bankruptcy, they could have took me to state court, and then we could have talked about the value of money, because now we're dealing with the constitutional issue of Article 1, Section 10, Clause 1, that no state shall make anything but gold or silver coin lawful tender for payment of debt. So if we
Yeah.
don't have any gold or silver coin, then
Yeah.
we use negotiable instruments to discharge debt. So which negotiable instrument trumps the other negotiable instrument? They both have the same value. As a Federal Reserve note, even in their own manual, it says it has zero value. It's just a promise to pay. So this was battle and dealing with today. So
Okay.
anyway,
Now it all makes sense. For me, I yeah, I read about these cases in the federal law books. Absolutely. Just like this. People using certified money orders.
okay. So
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, they're
there's a
apparently
promise to pay because
apparently all over the United States, mostly I would say central to the northwest United States, groups or I'd say entities in those various states were doing this, and they had a different name for whatever they wanted to call their. You had your little group here that you associated with. So yeah, they were doing this all through the late 80s and 90s. Absolutely, I remember this. I read about this over and over and over. And when Bitcoin came out, I was
well,
like, no way they're going to let this fly. And it kept rolling and rolling, and look where it went.
well, this is basically signature value or signature energy. So the
Right.
signature is actually the credit.
Awesome.
So anyway, I tendered with that affidavit of revocation of signature. I submitted another promissory note if they didn't like the one before. So anyway, they had a place to endorse it and trade it off as a fraction reserve and sell it off if they wanted to. So then 10I is where I used. This is a tender to the FHA, Farmers Home Administration, where I had a little loan on some land, and this was called a public office money certificate. Basically the same thing, promise to pay to Farmers Home, and here again it was a money order as required by that was tendered, required by 31 U.S.C. pending the official determination of the substance of said money by the Attorney General. And and they didn't. They came back and said, it had no value. Well, it don't. It only has the value to discharge. So, and then with that, when that was transferred, then I went ahead and 10J. I went ahead and revoked, rescinded my signature on all the mortgage contracts I had with FHA, and you see the three there that were put in place, and then I did a notice, 10K, I did the notice of rescission and discharge with that also.
Wow, you had some equity into all that.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's worth, I mean, It'd be worth a whole lot today and devalue Federal Reserve notes. But, so then go to 10L. And I'm going to go through this here mortgage, this real estate mortgage contract with Farmers Home Administration. And we'll touch on the highlighted parts. It says this mortgage is made and entered into, and they did put my name in upper and lowercase letters, a single person though, not a man, a person. And then they got residing in, okay, in the county. And it don't say state of South Dakota, it just says South Dakota, which is interesting. And then herein called borrower, okay? And then further down it says borrower is justly indebted to the government as evidenced by one or more promissory notes or assumption agreement, herein called note, which has been executed by borrower. So, and here was a loan I got right after I got out of high school when I purchased 80 acres, and then I did an assumption agreement where I took over an FHA contract where they kicked a neighbor out. But this is very common how they do it. And then down at the bottom of the page, it says, in any event, this is very critical of what this here mortgage represents. In any event and at all times, to secure the prompt payment of all advances and expenditures made by the government with interest and hereafter described, and the performance of every covenant and agreement of borrower contained herein or in any supplementary agreement, borrower does hereby mortgage, assign, and warrant unto the government the following property situated in the state of South Dakota. Okay, now we're in the corporation, county of Charles Nick Corporation. Okay, and then the next page it gives the description of the land up on the top, and then subject, however, to all valid outstanding easements, right-of-ways, mineral leases, mineral reservations, and mineral conveyances of record. And then it goes, together with all rights, interests, easements, rediments, and the crudences thereunto belonging, the rent issued, profits thereof, the revenues, income, all this here stuff, later attached, reasonably and necessary, including but not limited to ranges, refrigerators, washers, dryers, clothes dryers, carpeting, purchase, financing, in whole or in part, with the loan funds, all water rights, water stock pertaining thereto, all payments at any time owing to borrower by virtue of any sale, lease, transfer, conveyance, condemnation of any part thereof and interest therein, all of which are herein called the property. So that's included. That's all the property. That's everything that would be attached on it. If I fixed things up, everything was attached. That was all called the property. Okay, now to have and to hold. Now you go back to the previous page, and it says, you know, where this is assigned to the state of and the county of, and together, okay, to have and to hold the property unto the government, and it's assigned forever in fee simple. Wow. So I assigned all this property unto the government to have it to hold forever in fee simple. So what did I really buy? And then the borrower, for borrower's self, okay? You know how in court they always say, are you representing yourself? So who is the self? That's that legal fiction. That's your birth state that he's talking about there. The borrower for self. Borrower's heirs, executors, administrators, successors, and assigned warrants the title to the property to the government against all lawful claims and demands whatsoever, except for any liens, encumbrances, easements, reservations, conveyances specified hereto, and covenants, and agrees to the following: to pay promptly the due indebtedness to the government, hereby secured the enterprise to hold harmless the government against any law. The borrower continues to make payments on the note to the government against collection agent and holder. And then you assign the title over to the government to have it hold forever in fee simple, which they added that in some other verbiage a little bit later. And I'll look at here. No, and then in the bottom of page 10N, borrower expressly waives the benefit of any such state law. Borrower hereby relinquishes, waives all rights incorporate, and consequence of death, defense, dowry, and courtesy. So basically, you've transferred that all over to what is called the government, the corporation, to have them to hold forever in fee simple. And here's basically the location of the government office of the Farm and Film Administration. Those are hereby to be sent by certified mail. And so this is when I brought a suit against the Farm and Film Administration for a fraudulent contract. And in this contract, we address this stuff. And basically, it's a unconscionable contract. So we thought we would address this matter and have them finally come over and answer this here point by point. And so I filed this here in the state court. I filed this in federal court. And we went ahead and filed it, and then I went through all my trials, went through the state and the federal trial, and then I was transferred from Rock Rapids, Iowa, after the trial to Topeka, Minnesota, which was a college being converted into a prison, and they were having the prisoners clean the asbestos out of the walls and make little cubby holes to hold all their collateral. So when I got moved over there, the airman who was helping me in do my paperwork, and he had a lot of my paperwork, and I was getting shuffled around, so I didn't have much with me. And then I was asked I got a notice of appeal that they denied it in the district court. So I appealed it, and I didn't have any money I was only making 12 cents an hour, and to make copies and to put the postage on to get this mailed out to address the appeal. And so at the time I got those papers, they arrested Ray for driving without a license, and they put him in jail for 45 days while I was having to prepare this here appeal without my documents, with all the documents that I really needed in hand. And so I was working on this just by memory, and I was handwriting it all out, and worked on it. And it was fortunate there was a guy that was an English professor there, and he was a typewriter, and all we had was those old typewriters. They weren't electric, they were the manual typewriters. So when I got it finished up, I had it just about ready to send out, and my documents disappeared from my locker, and I was upset. And so all that work, and then somebody stole it from my locker, and I filed a Bureau of Prison, which is a BP8, BP9, and went up to the unit manager's desk, and was filing these here complaints to the warden and stuff. And a few days later, that document actually showed back up to my locker. So you've got the idea of where it went. without knowing who took it, the ones I was complaining to that it disappeared, brought it back and allowed it there. So we went down to the library and got it all printed out and formed up and got it ready to uh, respond within those 45 days that I had to, within the time frame that I had to respond for this appeal. So I didn't have any money to send this here, and lo and behold, when I got it all finished up, $50 showed up in my commissary account, and that was about what I needed for to make the copy and to do the postage to the parties I needed to send to. So, and what it was is my mother sent a $50 uh, money order to the prison to put into my account. And after I got out, I asked her. I said, "What made you send that money? That $50?" And she said, "I don't know." She said, "It just laid upon my heart." She said, "I knew you had nothing, and I knew you needed some money, and so I just sent it." And she just put it in an envelope. She didn't put a note or nothing, but it was the exact amount that I needed. I was able to make the record. But even though I've never gotten any type of settlement or any kind of restitution for any of the things that they've done, the record is made, and maybe one day here we can finally get resolved. So, in number 11, this is a verified complaint that I filed, and this was done. Uh, it was filed January 25th, and this was after they uh, stole the cattle and before they start taking the property. And and so anyway, I filed this here verified complaint. So comes down to A Link by special appearance and visitation, not to grant jurisdiction to state this criminal complaint that on the 25th of October, 1994, Peter K. Eckert, who's a Chapter 12 judge who's bar attorney, allegedly signed the document entitled Order Vacating the Order of Dismissal entered September 29, 1994, restraining debtor from filing judicial or non-judicial liens and transferring case to Chief Judge Urban N. Hoyt, having appearance of a bankruptcy judge, but to my knowledge and belief, he is not and did not have affiant's consent. This was done after affiant had demanded dismissal and was so dismissed, and that's where Peter Eckert basically ruled that there was specifically no existence of fraud on my part, returned all the property back to me, and I was out of the bankruptcy. So after that, that was when the non-judicial liens come into play, and then he reinstated it when he actually had a conflict of interest, but went ahead and reinstated it anyway. And then on November 10th, 1994, Irvin N. Hoyt, who was the Chapter 7 Chief Judge, was another bar attorney, signed a document entitled "The Order Setting Hearing on Dismissal and or Conversion of the Case," followed by the documents identified as judge's hearing minutes on December 1st, which this is when I first found out about it. I got it and I did that injunction that ended up getting presented to the U.S. District Court judge, and he denied it the day before they come out and swatted me and took all the cattle. And then the order converting case from a Chapter 12 to Chapter 7 on December 7th and 8th, 1994, and the order reducing notice period and notice of proposed action, sale of personal property of the estate by public auction, December 21st, 1994, order approving notice of proposed action, sale of personal property of the estate by public auction, and that was dated January 4th, 1995. And This here was filed on January, or filed into the court on January 3rd. Or no, January 25th, I guess, at 3 o'clock. And then the affiant is to believe that the actions were in excess of authority and were definitely without affiant's consent, as I've already withdrawn my signature on all that stuff. That said actions by Mr. Hoyt have brought affiant into involuntary bondage and peonage. Number 3, the affiant believes that Mr. Hoyt is in violation of his rules and is exceeding his authority, and he is perpetrating an involuntary servitude in violation of the Second 13th Amendment, which is criminally sanctioned under 18 U.S.C. 1581. Number 4, affiant has reason to believe that Mr. Hoyt is usurping authority, using fractional fraud, and put affiant into a state of peonage. And affiant claims that the actions of Mr. Eckert and Mr. Hoyt are in total violation of the Second 13th Amendment of no involuntary servitude and in violation of 18 U.S.C. 1581. All actions of Mr. Eckert and Mr. Hoyt and the above documents are resulting in personal damage exceeding $1 million and outside of any consent of affiant. In next page, 11A. Number 6, Mr. Hoyt has admitted to affiant that he is in violation of clearly established law. See U.S. versus Kaminsky. It's a 1988 Supreme Court case. When he failed to respond within 10 days to the notice of response to documents and refusal for cause without dishonor with affidavit filed January 5th, 1995. And that's what I presented on the first part of this here, part 9. Number 7, this complaint is a claim and demand given to the United States Attorney General and Supreme Court to consider, ascertain, adjust, determine, compromise, settle, and prosecute all those involved. That affiant is over 21 years of age and capable of testifying to the facts stated herein. And this notice has been timely filed and served. Further saith not, had it notarized and sent to the Supreme Court of the United States, Janet Reno, U.S. Attorney General, Department of Justice, and then we served the bankruptcy trustee and the bankruptcy attorneys and U.S. Attorney's Office and all the people that were involved on this here list. So this has been attempt to try to correct it, and we did this several times. Trying to file criminal complaints. I filed a criminal claim against Peter Eckert, and he ended up passing away. And so then I claimed everything in his estate, and how they handled that, the same as everything else. And then number 12 is right after that. This was filed just prior, about a month before just right before I got taken into trial on this here in South Dakota for the selling hay that was not part of the bankruptcy, but the bankruptcy court claimed it, where I tried to sell 6 loads of hay. And this is the cover page of the complaint for damages and for basically no 4th Amendment warrant when they stole the cattle, no due process of law. And this is the names of the guys that were involved, which is Louis Dirks. He was basically the head henchman that was hired by the Chapter 7 trustee to come out and steal the property. And Kevin L. Johnson was the head marshal, the lead marshal in this here. And he was the one that I actually asked if they would serve that document, that injunction, to the district court judge And that's where he looked at me and looked at the document, looked at me and looked at the document, and he said, "I can't file this. I can't serve this for you." And this Matthew Mackley, he was his one of the four, and then Richard White, which these were the four marshals that come out to the farm and helped to steal all my property with United States corporations financing and consent. With all the backup that they needed, they had the highway patrol, the county sheriff, the bankers were present,
Oh yeah, I bet.
and two guys that the banker hired that had the ski masks on and didn't want to identify themselves. But we have them listed on here too. Bill Youngston and Ray Westendorf. Ray Westendorf was the lead sheriff at that time, and Bill Youngston, he was the deputy. And you can have a lot of stories on that one where he was involved in taking stuff from these here funds for like these drug raids and stuff like that. But anyway, Dennis Marlar, he was one of the highway patrol. Robert Dennis Marlar, he was the highway patrol there in South Dakota that come out with his patrol car onto the county road, and later on, he was told, "Do not leave the highway. Do not go onto his property." And then Jeff J. Ireland, he was another highway patrol that was on the property that day they stole the cattle. And then the Sturgis Voigt, he was one with one of the guys with the ski masks who was with Wayne Williamson. Wayne Williamson was with Special Assets Production Credit Association. And then Roger E. Wilcott. And these last three were all from Yankton, South Dakota. And they were working with Production Credit Association to do the dirty work. And then Douglas R. Kettering, he was part of Kettering and Hosmer law firm there in Yankton, South Dakota, who didn't have a very good reputation as they were involved in a lot of corruption. But
So let me ask
attorney that
you got a line of credit from Production Credit Association. How much of that line of credit did you use?
I had it all used at that time because I lost a little bit of equity, and then I purchased them a couple hundred head of cattle and bulls, and I was trying to plant a crop. And so I was up against my line of credit limit, but yet I had more than enough assets. When they sold everything, they probably had twice as much assets as they had liabilities. And that's why when they sent that guy out to analyze my assets and losses, they said that he said, "I've been doing this for 25 or 30 years." And he said, "I've never seen a case like this here." He said, "You don't even qualify to be in bankruptcy, let alone a Chapter 7. So, but anyway, so then I sued Production Credit Association as a person, and Charles County as a person, state of South Dakota and United States as a person, and then Tri-State Livestock, and then any John and Jane Does. And then I also included the two trucking companies, which was Vanderswag Bros as a person, and then D&J Trucking. And I believe those are both out of Orange City, Iowa. So they were definitely getting all a piece of the pie as they were divvying out the assets that they were collecting. And there was other suspicions of other activities that transpired in that event, were between livestock barn that I sent them a copy of I sent them a registered letter on the day that they drove away with the truck, and I was able to get in town, and I put together that registered letter giving them notice that they're selling stolen cattle and they are to return them. And they turned around and they basically returned that registered letter. I still have it. It's unopened, all postmarked, but I sent it overnight registered, and they got it the next morning, and they returned it, and went ahead and sold the cattle anyway. So they knew exactly what they were doing. They were noticed. I called them. I talked to the sale barn the day before also, and but I think there's probably a lot more there that went on that could be investigated and found out. So if you want to go to the pictures, uh, in picture number one,
Hang
these were
on.
some pictures. These are some pictures that were taken during the raid, and some were uh, after they took the farm and everything else, and you can see what they did to the house after it was all said and done. But I took a bunch of these pictures as we went, and I've got some video cam of where when they stole the cattle. I had my neighbor when they first come onto the yard, and they surrounded me with all their guns pointing at the house and stuff like that. I had a neighbor come out, and he videoed uh, a lot of the people and the event that took place. So go to number one up on the left side. That's a copy of that's a this was in the spring of the year after they took the cattle, and what I was planning on doing was to build a right down on the bottom into that hill. I was going to build a house into that hill, and where I would have one level right on ground level where you drove in on the bottom, and then where you could walk out on the top floor at ground level. But house needed some paint, but it was structurally sound, and it wasn't real pretty everything. But I built a new shed on the property. It was a 50 by 144 foot, and I put keep out and postage signs on the door, on the big door, and then on the little side door. I put keep out, and on the bottom left hand corner was the mailbox sign that said "America, the land of the free, keep it that way." And then up on the top it had a picture of a flag, and then down the bottom it had a horse plow with the hammer and the sickle. Where we don't want it to go back to communism. So I put that out there. Uh, I guess if that was my expression to, like let's keep America free. And then number two, we got this was taken in the spring of the year. They already took the cattle a few months before in December, and now they were lining up to take all the machinery and the rest of the property and clean everything out. And this here picture was dated April 16th, the top left one. And this was Louis Dirks and his son coming out, and they were checking to see if I was home. So he went up here and they looked through the window to see if my car was in there, and it was all in the shed. And on the bottom left was this is Louis Dirks' two helpers that he had. He had some high school kids helping steal the property, but they weren't very proud of what they were doing. Apparently, they maybe were showing a little bit of guilt by wanting to keep their face covered. And then up on the upper right-hand corner, this was the Marshal Kevin Johnson on the left, and then on the right-hand side was a Toller, not Rick Toller. It was the Toller that he's actually sheriff today, but he was there as a deputy at that time. But you'll see I had the flag hanging upside down as in distress on this here iron rack I had sitting beside the shed. And then down here in the bottom right-hand corner was here was Kevin Johnson again, and talking to one of the guys that was Louis Dirks, the henchman's helpers. And he wasn't apparently very proud of what he was doing either, where he was trying to keep his face covered and didn't want a picture of it. And on number 3, on the upper left-hand corner, that was me talking to the sheriff and to Jay Cripps, who was the other marshal. And I was trying to explain to Sheriff Westendorf that he had a lack of authority, as I was dismissed out of bankruptcy, and I had the law book there with me. I was trying to point this stuff out, but it didn't matter. It was kind of like, go ahead, say what you're going to say, and we're going to do what we're going to do anyway. And down on the bottom left was the 4 marshals that were sitting there, and then a couple friends of mine, Larry and Ronnie, they came out to support as a witness. You know, when they come onto the yard, I called them, and they come up there. And then up on the upper right-hand corner was 4 marshals, and they had their, identified as police vests. And down on the bottom right, here was the marshals again giving aid and comfort, to the one stealing the property, as they were doing this all in the name of a bankruptcy court that didn't really have authority for what they were doing, but were going to carry it out to show their authority of not being willing to address the issues that we addressed, which was the substance of the money. And so, anyway, in number 3.5, here's we got the marshals standing all there with their guns on their side. They were all making sure that the thieves were protected. And I had this machine shed I had full of corn. I had grain sides on the side, and so they had a grain vac in there on the left, where you had and then on the bottom left, I had a grain bin, that grain bank one. It was full of corn, and I had that over there at my mother's place, or at my parents' place. And that was I put that up before I purchased this farm where I was living. And on this farm where I was living, that's where I put up this here shed. It was a 50 by 144, and I put concrete on the floor. And so that was full of corn, and so they had grain vac in there using my tractor and loader, to push it up and load it onto the trucks and haul it away. Number 4B, or number 4, and here was where they were hauling all the junk out of all the iron out of the trees. They took absolutely everything they had. I used to race stock car, and they took my stock car and just threw it in there, and I imagine crushed it. And over on the right side was Dirks's helper participating in the theft. And they were using a trailer that I built with my pickup to haul it. And then down on the bottom left-hand corner was Terry Copel, who was a neighbor, and he was taking some cheap feed that I'm sure the marshals give him a heck of a deal. Probably said, just take it, just get it out of there, and we don't want him to have anything left. So he come out there, never talked to me one time, lived about a half mile east of me. And anyway, we've talked before, but I mean, he just felt that he had the right to come and take it, and it was an opportunity to get some cheap feed. So, and then on the bottom right is again Dirks's helpers, the high school kids, that were there to assist in the labor. And number 5, here again is the Dirks's small gang of helpers, is the kids. I think the one on the left, I believe that is Louis Dirks's son. because when I filed that, I filed a criminal case and I was doing an investigation and I was looking for the names of these people. And so I went up to the college in Roosevelt High School, and I went in there and I was looking at the pictures, trying to identify them by pictures. And the next thing, there was a secretary or something there. And the next thing, I had a couple squad cars out front, and I was threatened, and I was told to get the heck out of there immediately, or they were going to arrest me and throw me in jail. So, but I did get the names of who they were, so I was able to identify who these people were. And then the picture on the right side is that was my pickup and my trailer and a header for the combine, and they parked all these vehicles and my equipment. This was taken from the side of my mother's house. So my mother was, I imagine she was about 90 at the time, and but anyway, they parked it all in front of her house to show, just to uh, I don't know, I guess to develop a little animosity or something, to create a little bit more of a drama. And then bottom left-hand corner is I was looking to find where they were hauling this equipment, and they were hauled it up to a sale location up by Platte, South Dakota, about 50 miles away. Get it away so people up there didn't know where it was coming from or who owned it or what happened. But they threw me in jail the day of the sale, and so I couldn't be present. So, but here again is a bunch of the equipment, and they had it out on a yard. I was able to find the location where they're having the sale, and I believe it was Travis Auction that sold it there in Platte, South Dakota. And go to picture number 6. This was inside the house, and this was the kitchen where of my house after returning back from when I was incarcerated for allegedly concealing property or equipment that was what they considered was part of a bankruptcy estate. But it was all, even though the equipment was all located on my land, the land that I farmed, they still called it concealing if it was moved. If it was moved and if it was a different location, it was called concealing. So I think we had 11 counts. So I had 11 pieces that got moved from when they originally took the picture. So that's what they called concealing. And you can see down on the picture on the bottom, there's still a brick in the window. They threw a brick through the window and busted the drawers and just demolished things. And go to number 7. And what I found that was very interesting, there was a coffee table, and this was in the living room, where there was a coffee table and there was a Bible neatly placed on the coffee table, with a bunch of glass and everything else busted where they busted the windows, and you can see how they tore these ceiling panels were removed, and I'm sure they were looking up there to see if I had something hid. But they went through and rummaged through everything. They took some guns and whatever they found was valuable, I'm sure. And this is part of the living room and the dining room where they busted the windows out and just tore everything. It was like a tornado went through there. But anyway, pictures. Go to page number 8. Here again is kind of in the dining room there, where I had a couch and some chairs, and had it all turned upside down, flipped over, and busted everything up. And just more destruction of the house, where they were. This is a message sent to me by the tyrants. That you're not going to question their antics, with their banking cartel and their power that they have by the financing where they get financed to hire these people to do this kind of stuff. But you can see how they just destroyed the house and how much hate that they must have to carry out an event like this here. You know, I have to look back to the scripture where Jesus said they hate you because they hated me first. And they hate truth. And I was just wanting to address the issues, and they said they weren't going to have it. So number 9 is a little bit closer up picture of the house. You can see how they had all the windows busted out, upstairs, downstairs, doors ripped off, and they just had it torn up. They must have had a lot of enjoyment out of this here. So this view of the house is after I returned from prison, which I called the space program, as I put in time and I took up space. And so is this the America that the people support, that we call the so-called land of the free?
Okay, hold on. You got locked up and then you got out of prison, and this is how you found your house after you got out of prison, or?
Yes. Yeah. When I come back, because before I went in, you know, they had a sale and all this here kind of stuff of my property,
Uh-huh.
of the land, and
Right.
I actually went to the sale, and I got up in front of the group of people, and there was probably 25 or so people there. And I got up in front and I told them that, you know, this here land was being stolen, and that it had liens on it, and they'll never get clear title. I said I don't consent to it. I said it's been discharged. I said I was not in any bankruptcy. I said you'll never get clear title and all that. And I was up in front of the group, you know, announcing this stuff. And the next thing, I had Sheriff Westendorf and the deputy, one under each arm, and they carried me to the back of the room. They told me to sit down and shut up. And if I got up and said anything more, that they were going to remove me from the building. So
How do you know that? How do you don't know that, you know, high school kids broke in there and, you know, smoked crack, tore it all up?
I had absolutely nobody. I had absolutely no problems ever with anybody stealing stuff, except for one time I had some stuff missing out of my yard, and I
Yeah.
had this Hooterite colony that lived a mile east of me, and their kids don't get anything, and sledgehammer stuff was missing out of an elevator, and I went over there and told them, and the next day it come back. So that's all I know. But other than that, this guy that Dale Meyer was the one that actually purchased the farm, and I know, and this was when I was still living there. He was telling these 2 grandchildren of his to come out there and they could have anything they wanted. And I still had my racing rims and tires and all this stuff, you know, laying in a barn. And I did go out and talk to him, and he said, well, they told me that they could have anything that they wanted. That's what they were told. And I said, well, that's not so. And so they ended up leaving. But afterwards, I'm sure whoever it was that come out here, you know, were told to do so. It wasn't like in a place where we had a lot of crack and what other kind of drugs, you know, but this was an intentional retaliation to destroy it so it would be unlivable when it got out. And it definitely was. It wasn't nothing. What's that?
I said they definitely succeeded at that.
Oh yeah. Anyway, so but this is what you do. I mean, if you want to destroy the family farms and cripple the foundation of our country and our food supplies, you want to destroy the small producer. And what I found in my little journey was that in 1970, the Secretary of Agriculture, this was a bill that I found was led to in 1970, that he hired 10 young executives and his instructions to them was to inflate and deflate the agriculture prices to do away with the small producers. So this
Of
is
course.
kind of the way it uh, come out, and they've definitely. You look at from 1933 to today. Back in 1933, I seen a chart at that time where in 1933, 97% of the people were involved in farming or made part of their living from agriculture.
Oh yeah,
And
absolutely.
today it's less than 3, and today it's less than 3%.
Yeah.
So,
They industrialized
no,
the country and brought everybody into the city and made everybody reliant upon the jobs in the city.
right.
Decimated,
And they're not
decimated.
able to, yep, they're not able to self-sustain if they were required to.
Yep,
And
absolutely. Yeah, they've done a number on us.
but this is what happens when you take God out of the school. In 64, in 63, they took God out of the school. They took prayer out of school. And then we went more into a secular society. We took the gold out of circulation. We took the silver out of circulation. And today we continue to circulate credit. They they have a dual standard of how you can create the credit. We sign our name to it. That is our signature energy that is applied to that promissory note. We are the source of the credit. And that's what was promised back to us in 33 under the War and Emergency Power. That we were to have our needs provided, and that
Hmm.
these here negotiable instruments would be considered dollar for dollar.
Right. Yeah, you're preaching to the choir on that. Now, let me throw this at you. We are almost 100 years into that scenario. 33 is like right around the corner.
Over a hundred,
In a
yeah, we're
hundred
over
years,
100 years from 1913, but from
yeah,
33, yeah,
it's the
the
Federal Reserve.
fractionalization started in 13.
Yeah, right. That's when the Fed took over. So my point being is, uh, in almost 100 years, this hasn't been remedied by anybody. And you know, in 2017, I would say I got a knock on my trailer door from the FBI about two guys that I was locked up with on the Ellis unit in 2014 and 2015, who were using Treasury drafts, which I had copies of when I was in prison. They seized them, uh, and they were doing the same thing, buying houses and cars. And I got a knock on my door. Absolutely. Uh, this isn't anything new. It's, you caught it at, I'm not going to say the beginning, but when it started catch across the country in the mid 90s, and they really started holding people accountable for trying to pass off the treasury drafts and the certified money orders and silver certificates and gold certificates. I had all that stuff, every bit of it. That's why when they locked me up in 2013 and confiscated all my materials, all my property, and even after I got out, they refused to give it back to me. Uh, it made no sense. But yeah, I've read about now. Now I totally understand why they did what they did, because they had to make an example, because there's a network, and they can't catch the whole network. They're going to catch somebody in the network and crush them so hard that it's going to make the rest. It's going to send shockwaves to the rest of the network. But the rest of the network will stop doing what they're doing.
Well, I know
That's
my neighbor. He used to play poker with the state attorney and stuff up at the casino, and he used to tell me, that you get a warrant for your arrest, and they were planning on doing this and that. And he said one day he was sitting there playing, and he said, "Well, we're going to make an example." And he said, "Oh yeah." He said, "What'd he do?" He said, "We're going to make an example out of him." So they had me targeted, and they were planning on doing what they were going to do because I addressed this issue in the bankruptcy court regarding the money. And Byron Dale was my expert witness, and he was from up by Lemon, South Dakota. And he wrote a book called Bashed by the Bankers. But anyway, if anybody wants to really see how far they will go to enforce what they did, he had it up on this was up in his trial where he had I believe it was the Attorney General. I'm not sure, but Bill Jankel was the governor, and they asked him. There was this here highway patrol. He was a 9th degree black belt, and he was asked, "Would you take out Byron Dale?" He said, or he first they asked him, "Could you?" And he said, "Well, yeah, I could." He said, "Well, now the question is, would you?" And he thought about it a little bit, and he said yes. And then this is one day when four guys come into his house, but before that, his wife, I believe, worked in town, and she was going to town, and then she said, all these here cars, there was a whole slug of cars that were parked by the station. And she called him and said, Byron, she said, they're coming after you today. And well, they did come to the house, and he invited him in, and I think it was the banker and this patrol, this 9th degree black belt, and a couple other guys. And they were sitting down on the kitchen table, and they had this here 32-ounce ketchup bottle in the middle of the table, and he had his little M13 that he would hunt coyotes with, sitting against the wall with like a 30-round clip. And they, he said, well, that's quite a rifle you got over there, and they were passing it around, and looking at it and stuff. And Byron, he was a shorter guy. He was probably 5'6" or 8", pretty stocky. And he said he kept watching that patrolman, and he was always looking at that ketchup bottle. And he said all at once, in one foul swoop, he grabbed that ketchup bottle, that 32-ounce ketchup bottle, and whacked him on the side of the head, knocked him off his chair, and just got on top of him and just pounded his face into the floor. And he said, after a while, after he just got wailed on for a while, he said, "You son of a bitch." And the next thing, he said he come to a dead stop. He was just so psyched out. And he come to a dead stop. And he quit. And he said if he wouldn't have quit, he said he'd have killed him. And then the next thing, they took him to the hospital. And they patched him up. And the doctor, the next thing, his wife was calling around looking for him. She called down to the sheriff's office, the police station, called the hospital, and she couldn't find him anywhere. And she got the hospital, and he was supposed to be there in the hospital, and they took him out of the hospital and took him back down to the jail. And the doctor's orders were to keep him there, and the doctor called down to the jail and said, "You bring him back up here, he'll never make it till morning." And so they ended up bringing him back up, and she was taking pictures of him and stuff, and he was pretty welded up. I mean, he was his head was like a balloon. And anyway, she took pictures of him, and then the marshal stole her camera, and she ended up getting it back, but that's where they got some of these pictures that was put in your book, Bashed by the Bankers. And that was written in the mid-'80s. But he bought his farm back 4 times. The last time he was running for Senate, and they were having his sale, and then they threw him in jail, and then they blew that all up over the media, and that's how he ended up losing the run for, I believe it was Senate or representative. I think it was the Senate, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, but he had this experience where they had this sale, and he went out there and he bought his farm back, and he wrote a site map, and he used his own credit to discharge the debt. And then they brought another suit against him, and they did it again. He did this 3 times. The 4th time, that's when they did a number on him, and he wasn't able to attend the sale.
I bet he wasn't.
Anyway, anyway, it's very interesting because he had two sons that run the ranch when he was doing this studying for it. But his two sons were a couple of the top bankers in Minneapolis. So he said, how this all works, he said, I don't know. But that's where they ended up. And they went the easier route of playing the game of the system. And but anyway, it was quite a contrast. So, but I learned a lot. I met some very probably some of the best people in this country, people that were willing to stand up for truth. The people now that are involved in this movement to restore this country back to constitutional authority are some of the very people that are willing to stand up and be counted. And most people that are in this here movement to try to correct this here problem, they've been beat up, they've had their property stolen, they've lost their homes, their cars, they've been in jail. But we need to work together to return this country back to
Yeah,
being lawful and
I wish.
and bring this here uh, law enforcement back to operating under the authority that they're granted and not be and be peace officers, not policy enforcers and revenue collectors. So anyway, that's part of my story. And then I went to this Title 42 and I sued all these people that were part of this uh, action. And that's a whole nother issue that I brought where I filed this Title 42 just prior to getting incarcerated. Had it served and everything. I had it served on the patrolman there in Plankington, and I believe it was in Stickney, the other place. But I had the sheriff do the service to the patrolman. And well, at the time, I wrote a check to pay for the service, and they held the check for a while, and then they seized my checking account, and the balance was zero, and then they run those checks through, and then try to charge me with writing bad checks. So this is the level of corruption that goes on within this here system. But they have the Bar Association and the bankers all working together in harmony, to carry all this out. So as long as they can continue to monetize these court cases and stuff like that through the CRIS program, which is the Court Registry Investment System, and make this here and create this credit, they can continue to pay mercenaries that are willing to sell their soul for a pot of porridge. And just for something, to get relief for the time. Not for the future, but for the time. So with that, that kind of concludes this section. And thank you, Floyd, for letting me share this. I think it's a opportunity to bring awareness to what really happens and to what's really the real story. I know I've never raised my voice. I've never retaliated. I've been charged with resisting arrest. I've been accused of taking a swing at the judge, saying I was going to kill all these people. None of that was true, but this is the kind of rumors that floated through the neighborhood. And then you had the little FBI guy, Matthew Miller.
What kind of neighborhood
all the neighbors
that your own neighbor would come steal your produce or your products? That's crazy.
Well, I guess people are thinking that that's fine. I guess as long as, I run out of bed.
It's not a good neighbor for sure. Wow. I guess we lost you. Can you hear me? Yeah, we lost Darrell. Well, there you go. That's the Darrell Link story. This guy, part 9. I think that's going to wrap it up. I don't know. We might cover his lawsuit. I don't know. I had no idea that all these parts evolved into the whole thing was regarding a certified money order. Had I known that, it would have probably been a lot quicker to get to the point, but it is what it is. That's all that it is. Yeah, crazily enough, I read, those cases, and then in 2013, when I first received all this information about cracking the code, redemption manual, Gene Keating, Winston Stroud, all those old school cats that nobody talks about anymore. Especially with the American Sovereign Bulletin, published up in Eugene, Oregon, I believe. I was reading that, and of course, they got a gazillion cases cited in the Sovereign Bulletin, all these articles talking blah 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 blah. Well, when I'm reading the articles and I'm looking at these sightings, and I'm like, man, it's not even correctly cited. How am I going to take this at value when they can't even cite it correctly? So I've got to go vet whether or not that it's actually the case says what they're saying it says in this Sovereign Bulletin. So I ended up reading all these cases, and just one thing led to another, and I started reading all these cases about these people using the UCC1 liens, the financing statements, the 1099 OIDs, getting those big fat checks from the Treasury Department. What else? And the money orders and the Treasury drafts, of course, my own experience getting a knock on my door for somebody I was just on a prison unit with. But it was because of the investigation prior to that on my unit that I got kicked off of. Taryn? I don't know. Darrell's phone went dead. There you go. There's your answer. Figure something like that. Those people were being made an example of because, I was locked up with this guy named Stacy Howard. And, man, this guy was just so jaded, so witty. He told me, he goes, Floyd, you can't play with their money. That's their money. That's their system. They got police for their money. So he told me, it's true. You go start playing around with their money. That's why I thought Bitcoin would never fly, because you're playing with their money. That's why I think Bitcoin, I think they let that roll for a reason. I don't know. You know how the CIA is. They love to come and get successful entities and take them over and use them as fronts. Absolutely. So you never know. But there's the Darrell Link story. We're finally concluded. Yippee! And it all goes back to certified money orders that aren't run through traditional registered, licensed financial institutions. So I think that's the thing. Now, had that come from, like a Series 7 broker who had a medallion stamp and stamped it, then the money order probably could have had some intrinsic value to some other entity where they would have accepted it as good as gold. Darrell's jumped backstage. Hey, man, I was wrapping up.
Yeah, sorry about that. My phone went dead.
That's fine. I mean, you said we were done anyway. I was like, okay, well, perfect timing.
Well, it was. I'm glad it hung out that long.
Yeah, right. Well, all right. Anything you want to close with?
Well, I just would encourage people to get involved and to try to work together and to let's take this country back and restore the constitutional form that we were guaranteed in Article 4, Section 4. And so I think if we unite, there's no way that this here corruption can continue. We need to continue to expose it for what it is. So with
Yeah,
that, I guess all things are possible with God who gives us the strength to stand and know truth as we move forward.
right. I think they keep us divided on purpose. That's
Without a
too.
doubt.
Yeah, it's not race, religion, political affiliation. It's something else. It's really sad. I wish everybody could just like put down their little social media shields and join hands and sing love songs.
Well, I know my parents used to talk about, how they'd always get together with the neighbors and I mean they'd work together. They would have thrashing bees where they would, thrash out your stuff and then you go to the neighbors, you'd all work together.
Yeah,
And
neighborly love. That's
but
gone.
but anymore it's get all you can all you get and try to get your neighbor's stuff too.
Yeah, right. It's sad.
Hopefully,
What
but
a
I
wicked
think
world.
this debt credit money system has really promoted that type of
Behavior.
behavior. Correct.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. All right.
We
Well,
need to get back to honest weights and measures, and things will work itself out.
yeah, the whole system's got to change, Darrell. And I don't think that the basic body of Americans have the temerity to fall back on an unknown to reset everything. I just don't think they have the guts to do it. They'd rather be in a screwed up system, knowing they're in a screwed up system, than change.
I truly believe that if people knew what the truth was, they would make decisions that would be beneficial for everybody. They would make better decisions.
Oh, absolutely. But
But when you believe the lie as if it was the truth, you get what we're experiencing today.
yeah. Well,
People
I
think
see.
it's legal.
Yeah, I saw a post on Facebook earlier. It's a woman allegedly came from a woman, basically stating how they got ripped off with the whole feminism movement, where they need to go out and establish a career, and the whole gender thing, and women power, and put off being a mom, stay at home mom, and all the traditional family stuff, and now they are in regret because they just overlooked that experience. Shit, there ain't nothing wrong with being a stay-at-home mom, stay-at-home dad. That's actually what you want to do. But they've brainwashed everybody into believing that there's only one way to live now. It's
Well,
sad.
this is the way they've destroyed the family unit.
Yep, absolutely. They've done a very good job of it. Just look at the
You
black
know,
community, how well they've destructed that. They told them have kids, and they had so many kids that they couldn't
the way the
control.
family goes, the way the family goes, so goes the country.
Yep,
But
absolutely.
but one thing that really resonates loud in my mind is when I went over to Russia on a mission trip back in 1993, when that one lady uh, in the park, when had to go get my backpack from the bus, was about a quarter mile away, and I was on my way walking back, and this lady come over to me, and she come up and she said, she wanted some Christian music. She said, everything has been destroyed. She said, we have nothing. You know where I can get some? And I had some in my backpack. I give that to her. And we continued walking back up toward the fellowship hall where we were going to do the distribution. And she said, I can see that you people in America are headed in the same direction as what we're trying to come out of. They took God out of the school. They took God out of the church. They took God out of the government. And they're trying to take God out of our life as they destroyed everything where we can learn about him and, and, you know, try to share that with our children. But this is the direction. She recognized that as she grew up in that atmosphere. She was probably up in her 80s, and that was back in 1993. So she lived through that, and she's seen the results of what happens when you take God out of the country and God out of places of authority. But our churches.
Which country was that?
This is in Russia. This is in St. Petersburg, Russia.
Oh yeah.
But with the churches almost become like a corporate business as they file their 501c3 corporate status and basically kowtow to the corporation and stay silent. And you can't speak about these issues, especially about money or any kind of gender issues. I mean, you're tongue-tied, and those that do, you know, they feel the heat. But anyway, I guess that's why the Bible commanded us to come out of her, my people. He said, do not touch, do not have a part. And so we need to separate ourselves. But when we lend our energy to this corruption, we just give it the gas to continue doing what it's doing. So.
Wow. That's crazy.
Okay, well, with that, thanks for your patience and for allowing me to share this. I hope it can help people see what the justice system really works for and who finances it. You know, they probably stole $1 million worth of my stuff for a $250,000-$300,000 debt. Or not even really a debt because I discharged it. So, but anyway,
yeah,
they wouldn't allow me to address that issue in state court. And
wow.
Anyway,
that's crazy. Wow, what a weird world. All right, my brother. Well, thank you for hanging out, man. I really appreciate you being here and doing the series. And I'll talk to you later.
Okay, you bet. Thank you.
All right, brother. Well, there you go. Now we're concluded with the Darrell Link story. So thanks for hanging in there and listening to all of them. If you haven't started from the very beginning, you can go back and listen to all the parts. It's very lengthy. So there are images and pictures and documents throughout some of those videos. So there's a little bug in front of my camera. That was funny. I was like, where's that coming from? So there is a Darrell Link story playlist, A Farmer's Nightmare. So all the videos will be over there if you want to go listen to them. And you can pause them, go back and look at the documents if you want. I think we just went over all of them in this video. So again, thank you for spending your money, time, and energy over here. And LeFlore's books that I just showed you, the On Trust and Specialty Trust books. These books are out of print, baby. Discontinued. They are no longer available unless you go to the fearlessfloydshow.com website. You can pick up your copies, softcover copies. Ebooks will be available until the soft covers are gone. But once these soft covers are gone, that's a wrap. So I have the Specialty Trust book as well as the On Trust book. They're both $1.99 soft covers. Pick them up while I still have some. Again, once they're gone, they are. That's history. I will not print anymore. So again, it's Sunday? Oh, tomorrow's Monday, the beginning of the week. Everybody have the most awesome week you can possibly have. God bless you all, man. Let's still try to get some peace in the Middle East. Peace in the whole wide world. How's that? You know, that's even better than the Middle East. And man, what can we do to save the United States of America? Let's try to figure that one out.